Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you and thank you for attending the this month's Fireside Chat. I have the great pleasure and honor to introduce to you a good friend and a good brother, someone who I served at the same time as Grand Master, and someone who I consider a friend and a mentor, and he's here to share some of his words of wisdom. I'd like to present to you Most Worshipful Brother Joe Crociata, past Grand Master of Washington, D.C. And with that, take it away, Joe. Look forward to hearing.
Thank you very much, Grandmaster, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Um, your Grandmaster was very courageously asked me to do this speaking today on three basic topics. The first requirement he had was that it, of course, relate to the experience we have all had as cryptic Masons. And the second, that it actually be something of substance, both of which shows him to be wise. The third was that I should limit my remarks to 15 minutes, which shows him to be merciful. So I intend to refer to one scene in one ceremony today, and just give some overall observations regarding the general state of life and to things to which it might relate, which will be understood by everyone who has gone through the ceremonies, and for those who have not, I certainly highly recommend it. The inspiration for this had to do with a fellow who was a companion from Illinois. His name is Rich Carnall. He's still a good companion out there. Some of you may have met him. And in what is now my 40th year of Masonry, he's one of two men who I would term being the finest ritualists I have ever had the pleasure of meeting. And Rich was the man who conducted me through a ceremony that we are familiar with that takes us through the crypts beneath the unfinished Temple of Solomon, and essentially places us in the opportunity to talk to the major character in the Masonic drama. Uh, I've always wondered as to why Masons in the United States focused to the extent they did on Hiram Abiff. The certainly our English brethren are known to dedicate their lodges to Solomon, who was, of course, the inspiration and the organizer of the temple. And somehow that seems to relate a little bit more to the basic precepts and directions that Freemasonry takes. In that Solomon, of course, was the man who coordinated the activities of so many thousands toward a single goal, and did so successfully. On the other hand, Hiram, who we tend to focus on more in our dramas, was in biblically an artificer in brass and fine metals. He was a man who was adept at the adornments, some of which are pictured behind me right now. But when you think of it, he was an artificer in metals. And so while the adornments and objects that he was depicting were things which had their season and would go away, by putting them into art, he was preserving them for those who would come later. And I think that's a key to when we encounter him in the degrees that we have here in cryptic masonry. Um, if you recall, he is called upon to try and explain to a younger Mason how it is the lessons of Masonry and the key lessons of Masonry are to be passed on, even though we as men are men of finite time and none of us will last forever. And he does this in two ways, which I think are key, and which I recommend to you when you're considering later on your own journey through the crypt and remembering it fondly, we hope. The first is that he's essentially talking about a general memento mori, remembering that everyone sooner or later must die. On the other hand, he puts a great deal of importance in the work that has to be done while we are on this earth, and focuses his concentration on the industrious use of our time in a way that benefits not only ourselves but the craft. If you recall, while the young mason asks, "Wait a minute, if we're not forever, and it's not assured I'll be able to get what I'm, the kind of skills and the kind of information I'm looking for, how will I find it?" And that's never really answered. Just some vague allusions as to where the mystery will be left. So it seems clear that not only is Masonic light the reward for the completion of our labors here on earth, but also a mystery to be discovered through the labor not only of ourselves and our contemplation, but through the labor collectively of those who will follow. Seems clear that in the Haramic legend, the scope and breadth of Freemasonry is found in this life, that is, as a fraternity of men, and not as some religion seeking the mysteries of an afterlife. As it's has been stated, the dead have no portion of anything that is done under the sun. It is the labor of King Solomon and the temple and those who are helping him that are seen as the tasks at hand, which must be completed and must be completed by man while he is here. And that makes sense because when you think of it, all of the labors of men are directed toward making order from chaos. As a matter of fact, that's true for all species. Uh, Order and chaos is simply two other words for the known and the unknown. Order has to do with familiar situations, things that we have learned, things that we have learned for ourselves in our own experimentations, things that we're taught. We know how to handle familiar situation. We develop rituals and strategies for doing virtually everything, even in the simplest creatures of man or of God. That is found. You can put a rat in a maze and put the food in the same place every time, and he will learn his way how to get through that maze to get to the food. Unfamiliar things are from the realm of chaos, and that are things that we encounter both as men and as the simpler creatures encounter, which is new and carry with them two different aspects. They are a threat. And indeed, quite often when we encounter something that is unexpected, uh, we are sent to panic in a certain mode. Going back to the rat in the maze, you can have exactly the same maze, exactly the same time, day after day. Someone put a plastic fire plug in one corner where it's not normally seen. The rat freezes when he first sees it. Now, the only expression a laboratory rat will be mobility or immobility. And so he'll stay there for a while until he can figure out whether it's a threat, whether it's something that's an opportunity, is it something that's edible? And he can assign a value to it in his simple mind and figure out how to deal with it. So chaos, those things that are unfamiliar, provide both a threat and an opportunity. We are given exactly the same choices in everything we run into that is unexpected in life. And that is the reality of what is. We need to learn it. And these are the knowledge, this is the knowledge and the reason why in earlier Masonic degrees, we are urged to perform a study of the arts and sciences and learn as much as we can about the nature of the universe and our place in it. And then after we learn as much as we can about the reality of what's out there, we are left to ask for to develop a knowledge of the valence or the value of what is or what is not can be said about anything, any individual piece of the universe. Essentially, what we should do about it, what it means in our lives. there are examples all the way through. There's a neuropsychologist, a recent publication, who he has given the example of a young boy, 3 years old, seeing a crystal vase with the light shining through it and all the beautiful colors that are coming through it, that's in front of a window in the living room. And being 3 years old, seeing that it's beautiful, he'll walk up and start running his hand down it and feel how cool it is and how smooth it is. And then suddenly from behind him, he'll feel his hand being snapped away by his mother, who will say, well, wait a minute, honey, yeah, it's beautiful, but we don't touch it. He's being taught that this beautiful thing, while it can be touched, has a different value and it requires a different respect. And that way, hopefully, this vase survives his childhood and into his adulthood. Every new problem you're presented at work has the same kind of effect. You have your own plans, you have your own picture of how you want to improve yourself and improve your standing at work. If suddenly something gets in your way, you'll have two reasons. First of all, it's a threat, and it's something that it gives you your kind of feeling of tingling sensation that something is getting in your way and is an obstacle, and it's an opportunity. You have to figure out a way around it, or find out whether or not it's just something you have to experience and something that you have to ultimately give valence to, put it in the place of how important it is to you. Well, going back to the part of the Hiramic legend that we were talking about in the Royal Master degree, that's pretty much what you're being urged to consider in the context of the greater Masonic good and the greater Masonic values that it's important to take from those degrees. Now, this comes from the central portion in your brain, indeed the most ancient portion of your brain, the limbic system. It's the oldest part of the brain. It's near the brainstem, and it's got, oversimplifying, it's got two parts: the amygdala and the hippocampus. The amygdala is where your fight or flight lives. This is where, when you encounter something new, that this is what gives you that visceral reaction of needing to, or in the case of the laboratory rat, what causes him to stop, what causes us, hopefully, to think. And then you get to the hippocampus when you have sorted through the unexpected, when you've sorted through the challenge and figured out how to either value its encounter or how to overcome it. I entitled this "Walking Upon the Ashes," because of the great truth that is given to us in cryptic masonry, that we walk upon the ashes of generations who have gone before, and will soon give our ashes as well for others to walk upon. And this is the second and the more important, in my mind, lesson of the cryptic degrees. I wonder if anybody knows how much of your DNA is in common with the great apes, our closest relatives. And the answer is well in excess of 95%. Yet the apes are the apes, and we have come to as men have come to dominate the planet in a way that is completely unprecedented, even from the times of the dinosaurs. There are three reasons in my mind this occurs. The first is language. We are able to communicate with abstract concepts. The second is myth, the ability to obtain agreement upon foundations for joint action by large groups of people. I mean, one of the myths you have is the dollar bill. It really has no intrinsic value larger than a piece of paper on its own. Nonetheless, we all subscribe to the myth that it does. And it's a general agreement that we are going to treat it as something of value for the purposes of the ease of exchange. Because you can disseminate that among a certain population, that works, and it enables man, unlike the lesser creatures, to work in concert in a much more effective way. And finally, you have what we deal with a great deal in Freemasonry: legend and symbolic communication. Not just writing, but the ability to pass knowledge along, both from legends and myths, as well as in writing, permitting us to amass a collective knowledge, indeed a knowledge that goes beyond the grave over succeeding generations. I mean, Copernicus settled the shape of the universe. I don't have to reinvent it. And that kind of thing is, I think, precisely what the master was talking about in our degrees when he talks about our ashes being laid upon the ashes of those before, a succession of generations. And if you examine the degree and examine it at that light, it will give you the opportunity to ascribe a great deal more meaning and understand it much better. The walk with Hiram teaches us the limitations of life and uncertainties of challenges and chaos. It walks you through the lightning reaction of the synapses in your inner brain to those things that are unexpected, to those challenges that need to be met and can only be met by common efforts with others, which is the second point, which it points to the hiding place of the secret word through and by aid of the actions of those who have come before, and the certainty of our own joining them. So it walks you through those abilities in yourselves that make man unique among the creations of the grand architect. Those are the important aspects that I urge you to think of when you go back and reread the one time that you had the opportunity to walk with our first grandmaster, and think of the expanse of the lessons that are contained in a soliloquy that frankly takes less time to give than you have kindly given me in listening to these few thoughts on them. Most illustrious sir, thank you, Mo.
Thank you, Most Worshipful. That was an outstanding presentation, and I really do appreciate you joining us here. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Most Worshipful Joe?
Actually, pause. Thank you, General Grandmaster. You are now recording again.
Do we have to pause with my face plastered all over the place?
Absolutely.
Again, I want to open it up to any questions or comments that anybody may have for Most Worshipful Joe. I know that one of the aspects of the presentation that you spoke about that I've always considered is that Hiram was kind of underlying the need for us to be prepared to leave for the future generations those things that they need to have available for them to be successful, and to make sure that they know where they will be held. And that's something that I've always found interesting in that part of the ritual.
Certainly, he is presented as a man of great faith, and he has he registers his hope for a reward essentially in the heavens. By the same token, I think that he makes it clear that one of the ways one is worthy of that is to make sure that the labors one is given here on earth are handled competently, and are handled in a way that the temple will be accomplished and the temple will be completed, whether or not it is completed in his or anyone else's lifetime.
Well put. Okay, anybody else have any comments or questions? Going once.
No, I don't have any comments other than Joe. I think you hit it right on the mark on several points, and there's many ways to look at these degrees, but I really enjoyed your take on it and explanation of the journey with the conversation and journey with Hiram. It's something that we need to explore much more within the cryptic degrees, because I think it has value for everything. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Anyone else? Okay, well, we'll go into the question and answer part of the program. Again, as always, the length of this meeting is determined by you folks. as to any questions or topics that you guys want to discuss with myself or any of the other team from the General Grand Council. It is open to anyone, and I'm welcome to address any questions as long as they don't involve specific ritual or any of the secrets.
General Grand Master.
Yes, sir.
We've got Richard Reddick, who's had his hand raised. I'm not sure if it was supposed to be directed at Joe or a General.
Richard?
Towards Grandmaster Joe.
Okay, go ahead.
At the very beginning of your presentation, you noted the distinction between the British Masons' emphasis on King Solomon and us American Masons focusing more on Hiram Abiff. I've read the Old Testament, and particularly after Moses, there was, you shall be a separate people, and don't let anybody unclean come among you, and yet here's Solomon building this temple, and he's got a couple of men from Tyre involved in it. The legend, the Masonic legend, is that Hiram was half Tyrrhenian and half Israelite, but Hiram, king of Tyre, was a full Tyrrhenian. And we're told they represent wisdom, strength, and beauty. I just want to pick your brain and get your thoughts on what are some things we can take from the fact that here was Solomon constructing the most sacred object to the nation of Israel. He's got a couple of foreigners, not only working on it, but leading up the project. And how do they represent wisdom, strength, and beauty?
All right. But let me separate those. First of all, with respect to your first question, one of the things that, in my view, and again, this is, as you're aware, Masonic interpretation, it goes in every direction and nobody speaks for Freemasonry and all that, but with those disclaimers, when you think of it, if you are going to apply the lessons of Solomon to the lodge, and let's remember that the lodge, the Masonic lodge, is the point of what we do. Our activities and our relationships to each other are what are key and what it is we're trying to work on. The wonder of Solomon's temple was not in the perfection of its dimensions or its decorations or its conception. The magic of the legend of Solomon for Masons is how he coordinated the efforts of so many various and sundry people in order to bring them together in harmony in order to complete a single goal. That relates to what, if you will, a master's duty is in looking around his lodge at the various and sundry officers' places and the sidelines. And if he's wise, knowing everyone who is around the lodge and what their capabilities are, what their strong points are, indeed, what their weak points are, in order to work out the way to make sure the lodge works as effectively as possible in unison as a group of individuals. And under a system, a Masonic system, which values the individual and his intellect and his outlooks on an equal basis, albeit with different offices having different duties. So the fact that you had a Tyrian that was involved intimately in the execution, and I seem to recall that Hiram, king of Tyre, he was involved in logistics a great deal, if we're going to use the modern term. It's not surprising at all, and indeed the Masonic legend expands the role of Hiram Abiff far beyond being the decorator, the worker in brass. The Masonic legend makes him the architect of the entire operation, which is something that certainly is not something you would get from the text of the Old Testament that it's given us. Not that it's true or not true, but one way or the other, this is something which was supplied by Masonry as opposed to by the text of any individual holy book. So the fact that there is some difference there is hardly surprising, although I acknowledge there is some anomaly going from verse to verse in the Old Testament as to whether or not they should have been. fact of the matter was they are, and they are in our ritual. Your second question had to do with why why wisdom, strength, and beauty. This is something that I think as a Mason, you should look at, we love threes. You should look to the, as I can put this without going into ritual, you should look into the places that each are found and the qualities of each office which represent them, and the application, the implications for your own attempts to improve your own character as you go forward in your profane life, which is to those who are non-Masons online, that just means life outside the temple. And I think that's where you find the relationships and the reason why those particular virtues, those particular aspects are placed where they are, both in the legend and in our lodges.
And I would add, Joe, that was good. I would add also to your point about the variances or the variations in the legends. We have within the select of 27, we have one or two versions that insist that everyone in the 26 in all, other than Solomon, are not from the nation of Israel. They're from Tyre. They're Tyrians. You have others that say the select of 27 are all Israelites from the kingdom of Solomon, and only the two Hirims are the Tyrians. And then you have things in between. We know in one version, in Select Master, we have a Hishar, who's the laughable sleeping guard, the comedy relief moment in all of our Yorkite festivals. But a Hishar in the Bible is the head of household. I believe that in some interpretations that would be chief of staff. He's not Benson the butler. He's at a higher level, the one that Benson became in that TV show where he was the chief of staff to the governor. In that regard, Ahishar was probably an Israelite, unless he had a history like Joseph in Egypt and had held that trusted position. But in any event, when Zabud replaces him, in effect as the first entered apprentice, or shall we say fellowcraft, that's the beginning clearly of members of King Solomon's nation becoming part of this select of 27. So there's many variations on it, and I'm not so certain that the legend is in conflict with the biblical directive. I'm just going to lay that out there, and we can have that discussion another time.
And I was trying to keep it to the Royal Master degree, but going into Select, one of the other things I'll invite everybody to do is read over the Select Master degree in the context of the first part of the presentation as to when we're talking about making order from chaos, and the experience of the candidate as he is taken through that degree as indeed a different personality. And I think you'll find some interesting parallels there.
Any other questions or comments? Feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself and talk away. Okay, just a couple of quick things going on with the General Grand Council. We continue to get things back on track for our meetings. Steve was just in Oklahoma for their grand sessions. Want to congratulate John Green for being elected as what was a recorder. And I was in Idaho last weekend for their grand sessions, and Bill, I think, was in Nebraska for their grand sessions. So things are starting to open up for travel, and it's really been great to get to see the companions in person. I look forward to more openings and more opportunities to go and visit with the companions. It's been a long year, a little bit more than a year now, and it's a welcome relief. So with that, does anybody have any questions or comments for me or my team around the cryptic masonry in general, or the General Grand Council in particular? Go ahead, Joe.
General Master, thank you in first place, and thank you for the most worshipful Joseph Cruciato for his lecture. It's brilliant. So thank you, most worshipful. About the August meeting of the General Grand Council, do you know if it is kind of a mix between in person and with and in Zoom? Because until I don't know, probably until now we cannot fly to the US, and we don't know really that when it's going to be possible to fly away from cross Atlantic. So I don't know. We are starting now to open up, probably until this next month May. We will open up really kind of more ample form, but I don't know if the numbers are starting to growing again. Probably we'll go shut down again, but hopefully not. But we don't know really. About August, I don't know if you can be in person in the for the session of the General Council.
It will be only in person.
Okay.
We had thought about the possibility of actually doing something kind of a hybrid, but I think logistically it's just going to be too difficult, not being familiar with the site, and it would be very difficult for us to manage in terms of the voting and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So we decided to make it directly in person. We do realize that it's going to be almost impossible for our companions from outside the U.S. to attend. It's going to be hard for some of our companions within the U.S. to attend too, because again, I don't think everybody is quite at the same level in terms of willingness to get together in a group. Plus the location that it's being held at, there's some lingering concerns about the location, but I do believe that come August it'll be fine. If for some reason the travel restrictions are lifted both in Europe and being allowed to fly into the United States, we certainly hope that you guys can actually come and participate. But there's nothing that's really going to be earth-shattering on these resolutions that we're going to address, but it would certainly be great to be able to see all of you guys.
Yeah.
And General Grand Master, I would note that if any of the outside the United States jurisdiction, in fact, even inside the United States, have comments they would like to make to be included in the General Grand proceedings, they could submit those to the General Grand Recorder, including a report for a regional or an ambassador. If you want to submit those, just so that people know that you were thinking of us, we'll be thinking of all of you. So just wanted to add that opportunity is there.
Thank you, Bill.
And while we're on that topic, we are still planning on holding the first session of the triennial in Minneapolis, Minnesota on August 13th and 14th. The 13th will be a education opportunity. There's going to be some recorder training in the morning, I believe, and some CMMRF training and education in the afternoon. We're going to have my grand banquet that evening on Friday. It is affectionately being referred to as the Aloha Dinner. My team will be wearing purple Aloha shirts, and it'll be a casual dinner. So if you've got a touristy Aloha shirt, please bring it with you. And if you're interested in one of these shirts, you can order them through Steve and Michelle at the General Grand Council. They are accepting pre-orders for them so that we don't build up a stock of them and then have to peddle them. So anybody that's specifically interested, they can help you out. The second day on Saturday will be dedicated to the business session, and we have, what is it, 7 6 or 7 resolutions, Bill?
I think my current memory is that we've got 6. Yeah.
Okay. That we will be voting on. We will also be hopefully approving a charter for Germany to form their their grand council. And anything else that may happen to come up from the floor, we are working with our ritual committee, which has been working really hard to make some changes to the ritual to get it back in line with the traditional ritual. The Clyde Schoolfield has been really working very, very hard in helping us correct some of the issues with the current ritual, and that will likely be brought up for a consideration either at this meeting or a future session of the General Grand Council. So, any other questions on the triennial session? And I do want to highlight too, the second session, which will be next year in 2022 in August. We don't have a specific date yet, but in August, that will be a virtual only meeting, and that will be focused on letting people know what things are going on financially with the General Grand Council, how we're spending your money, and that sort of stuff. Hopefully we'll have a report from the audit committee for the last 2 triennials that are currently undergoing an audit, and answer any questions that the companions may have for that. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Might be a short meeting tonight, guys.
This is Steve Rubenstein. I just want to say hello to Joe Crociata. I've known him for a number of years. I think the last time I saw you was at a Night Masons meeting in New York about 1.5 years ago.
More than likely, Steve.
More than likely. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
Yeah, it's I have really personally loved all this Zoom stuff because it's actually allowed me to get together with friends and brothers that I haven't had the opportunity to see on a regular basis, and I'm really happy that I actually get to spend some time with Joe and talk story with him every couple of months, and have a cigar and adult beverage and share stories and tell each other lies, and it's a wonderful time, guys.
We're much handsomer on those nights.
Yes. And much more philosophical too. Yes. So, but yeah, I've always encouraged people to take this opportunity. While we can't necessarily see each other face to face in person, this is an opportunity for us to travel anywhere we want. Tonight we have, just right off the bat, we've got Italy represented by Most Illustrious Alessandro, who is the Grand Illustrious Master for Italy, and of course companion Right Worshipful Brother João from Portugal, and I don't know if we have any other international representatives on here. I think that's it. At least it's coming to mind. But yeah, so this, again, it gives us the opportunity to share time with people across the world. And I think it's a wonderful tool, and I hope it never goes away when things open up, because it has shrunk the world. And I know, as far as I'm concerned, it's allowed us to have more frequent and better communication than we've ever had before in Masonry. And while it's still difficult and it can be time consuming, it's a wonderful thing. Italy ? Bill?
Yeah, I thought Alessandro was on. I didn't hear you mention it.
Yeah, I did.
You may
Most
have.
illustrious. Most illustrious Grand Master of Italy. So, and he's got his grand sessions coming up. Alessandro, when is your Italy's grand session?
Non c'è il mio traduttore, Monty. I don't have a translator.
Okay. I believe September, your grand session?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
10 September.
okay. And I've got to give Alessandro, I'm going to speak a lot of English here and you probably won't follow, but Alessandro has been doing a great job and I give him many kudos because Alessandro attends meetings all over the world and they're typically in languages that Alessandro doesn't understand, but he just loves being with companions. And so I take my hat off to you, sir, for all the great work that you're doing. It's okay, Alessandro.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said something good. It was good.
When we have meetings, we always have a translator, so it makes it much easier. So, and how you said that, Joe, that things are starting to open up in Portugal?
Yes, yes. I think they are starting up to open up to have gatherings, not too much big. So until now, the restaurants can be 6 persons inside. For outside of the restaurant, the gatherings are not yet clear. So probably in May, they will start open up to have meetings. So I don't know yet because we have kind of 50 in 2 weeks. So another state of emergency or not renewal. So in that time, every 2 weeks we have to kind of rearrange or reset our lock or unlock the things because it depends on the numbers. So until now everything is going smoothly, but I don't know. Let's wait until the end of this month, and so but probably it will starting open up more broadly in May. Yes, and hopefully that we can meet again in May in person.
Yep,
That's
I'm
my
looking forward to
expectation.
being able to come back and visit either
Yes.
masonically or personally and get some more of those great pastries. Have some more codfish. So
Yeah.
the
Next time you'll be in Portugal, we'll take a tour, but this time not codfish, but on the meat side.
okay, carne, yeah, outstanding, wonderful food in Portugal.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have anything?
General Grandmaster, I'd rather not end on this note, but we did have Alan Jackson on a little bit ago. I think he jumped off, but I think it might be appropriate for John Logan to maybe mention an recent incident.
Is John on here? Oh, there he is, John.
Yes, sir, I'm here. We had the misfortune Wednesday night, perhaps early Thursday morning, of losing a very dedicated, most illustrious companion from Kansas by the name of Rodney Middleton. Rodney had spent an hour and a half with us on Wednesday in the South Central officers Zoom meeting. And unfortunately, Rodney lost in a traffic accident later that same evening. So we've all been kind of on our heels after that news, and just want to let everybody know that we certainly appreciated all that Rodney did for Cricket Masonry, and he was an asset to Masons in Kansas. He served in all the Grand Lines and was just a wonderful example of a guy who enjoyed fellowship and Masonry.
Thank you, John. Yes, I was so shocked when I found out about it. And Rodney, he was a very special person. I mean, he was just a kind and gentle soul. always willing to help out, always had a kind thing to say. And I'm going to miss him greatly. You know, I remember he and I had been trying to get together in different sessions for a very long time, and we just never seemed to have it happen. And then, you know, I remember telling him in the meeting that I'm looking forward to seeing him in the South Central meeting, and it just, yeah, it was devastating. Please, everybody, keep Rodney and his family in your prayers. And you know, it underscores that we don't know how much time we're allotted on this planet. So, you know, always be prepared. Always make sure that your family and loved ones are able to do without you in case of an unfortunate accident. But always make sure to tell them you love them. It's really important. Thank you, John. Anyone else? Mark Irwin, how's life?
Do you have me now, please?
Oh, hi, Wayne.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've been packing, getting ready to go to the Rodney Middleton funeral in southeast Kansas. I'm sorry, I missed a meeting. Rodney was a good friend of mine, and also a great Mason. I don't know if anybody had notified you that he had passed away in a car wreck Thursday night.
Yes, we did.
Okay. So anyway, excuse my absence, everybody, for not being here earlier. By just I had to pack so I can get on the road. It's a 15-hour drive for me. Okay.
Well, be very careful on your drive, sir.
Okay. Thank you for your time and your courtesy.
Yep. Thanks for jumping on. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, we will end early. And again, I thank you all for being here and attending and taking part. And I look forward to seeing you all next month. I don't have a speaker lined up yet, but I've got a couple of thoughts on who I want to throw under the bus. Joe, again, I really appreciate it. And I know I kind of threw you a bit of a curveball there in the very beginning that made you had to think on your feet. But really, I think that there's nobody better that thinks on their feet that you do. And I really look forward to the next opportunity we get to hang out at Shelley's and burn some of the leaf and enjoy a drink with one another.
Monty, there's an entire committee of Masons from your nation's capital that will be preparing for your arrival.
I look forward to it, sir. So with that, gentlemen, I thank you again for participating. And if anybody has any lingering questions later on, please never hesitate to reach out and let us know. And with that, Steve, do we need to do a closing bookend kind of thing, or are we just good to go?
General Grandmaster, we're good to go because I'm in a hotel room.
Okay, well, keep it safe.